What if I told you that sometimes redemption doesn't come with applause, or a hero's welcome, but with flour-dusted hands, broken fences, and a kitchen rebuilt from ashes? Stay with me, because this isn't just a story about survival. It's about rising, scar by scar, until the world no longer whispers your shame, but sings your name. Don't blink. You'll want to feel every second of this one. Before we dive deep into this powerful journey, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Stories like this deserve to be heard, and we've got many more coming. Don't miss them. Winter gripped the mountains of Montana like a silent predator, burying everything beneath layers of snow and bone-deep cold. Wind curled through the narrow passes like whispers of old stories nobody dared to repeat. And into that harsh, frozen world came a stranger. Emma Rivers stepped down from the creaking wagon, boots worn thin, a battered suitcase in hand, her coat frayed at the cuffs. The ranch in front of her, Broken Ridge, looked more like a prison than a home. Gray wood, chipped paint, smoke curling weakly from the chimney of the bunkhouse. She wasn't here for a welcome. She wasn't here for kindness. She came for work. The man who drove her said nothing when she thanked him. He just flicked the reins and disappeared back down the trail, leaving her standing in the ice fog. It didn't take long before the cowboys noticed her. The low whistle. The sideways glances. The private murmurs that grew louder with each passing hour. Is that who I think it is? Billings. Saloon girl. I swear it. What's she doing here? Think she's gonna charm a new life out of that kitchen? But Emma didn't flinch. Not anymore. She set her suitcase down by the bunkhouse steps and waited for the foreman. It was grit that kept her upright, not hope. And from the far end of the ranch yard, leaning against a split-rail fence, stood a figure she didn't notice, not yet. A tall man, broad-shouldered, quiet. Luke Marston. He knew who she was the second he saw her. Years ago. Billings. A dusty saloon. Her coat torn, her pride shattered on whiskey-soaked floorboards. And Luke, too young, too scared, too spineless, had stood by. Watching. Silent. Doing nothing. That night had followed him like a hunting dog's shadow every day since. And now, here she was again. Emma was taken in reluctantly by the ranch's foreman, handed kitchen duties that no one else wanted. The stove leaked smoke, the chimney barely drew, and the supplies were a joke, flour clumped with weevils, potatoes half-rotten. But still, she cooked. Biscuits, coffee, stews stretched beyond their limit, bread rising with borrowed yeast. She cooked like someone fighting for her name back. The men jeered, whispered, made jokes loud enough for her to hear but soft enough to feign innocence. Every meal felt like a trial. Except with Luke. He didn't speak to her. Not yet. Instead, his hands worked silently when no one was looking. He fixed the broken stovepipe late at night. He left a new sack of flour by the door, no explanation. He salted the path from the bunkhouse to the kitchen when the snows came hard. Emma noticed. Of course she did. But pride was stitched into her bones now, and she wouldn't give anyone the pleasure of seeing her say thank you out loud. There was a storm one night, thick with sleet that turned everything slick. Emma slipped on the stairs outside the kitchen door, hands scraping wood as she tried to catch herself. The next morning, new handrails were bolted in place. No one said a word. But the distance between Emma and Luke wasn't measured in feet. It was measured in shame, in guilt, in the silent screaming of everything that should have been said years before. And winter pressed closer, sharp and merciless, holding them both in its breathless grip. Emma Rivers had come to Broken Ridge to work. But something else was starting here, too, slow, painful, inevitable. Not redemption yet. Just the beginning of it. Spring had barely whispered its arrival. The ice still clung to the shadows, stubborn, brittle. Life at Broken Ridge trudged forward with the rhythm of boots in mud and the slap of saddles on restless horses. Emma's reputation, fragile and cracked from the moment she arrived, was about to shatter completely. It started in the bunkhouse, over whiskey and cards. Reed Latham, the ranch loudmouth, smelled weakness the way a hound smells blood. His words slithered from one ear to another until they coiled around the whole ranch. Billings, he sneered. I remember her now. That saloon. filthy place. She worked the floors, not the tables. The laughter wasn't loud, it was worse. It was quiet. Knowing. Cowards rarely roar, they whisper. Emma stood at the doorway of the kitchen, apron dusted with flour, the scent of baking bread curling into the air like some kind of mockery. Her hands didn't tremble, not yet. She'd learned not to tremble. But that night, she heard it again, soft, sharp, tearing through muscle and memory. Saloon trash. It was Luke who moved first. Before his mind even caught up, his body was already across the room. The back of his fist collided with Reed's jaw, sending teeth into whiskey. Chairs scraped. Boots shifted. Luke didn't care. For years, guilt had eaten him hollow. This wasn't noble. This wasn't heroic. It was survival, his own. Blood trickled down Reed's chin, blending with spit and curses. "You're siding with her." "I should have done it years ago," Luke said, voice like gravel breaking under wagon wheels. "And I'm done being ashamed." The room buzzed, uncomfortable, torn between curiosity and fear. No one lifted a hand to stop him. No one offered Emma an apology. And then came the truth. "I'm Luke Marston. My father owns this place." Silence exploded outward like thunder rolling through dry canyons. Emma stood frozen, not out of shock for the punches, but for the weight of that admission. The son of the ranch, hiding behind another man's name, silently watching her fight alone. But even that wasn't the worst part of the night. The worst part came later, when flames bloomed against the black sky like some cruel sunrise. The kitchen, her kitchen, was burning. Someone screamed. The fire spread fast, too fast. Oil, dry wood, stored kindling. Smoke billowed like ink, blotting out the stars. Emma tried to go back inside. Tried to save what little she had. Her clothes, her recipes, the tiny tin box of trinkets from a life before. Luke caught her arm, dragged her back. She fought him. Kicked. Screamed. But his grip was iron. When the roof finally gave way, the sound was like bones snapping under weight too heavy to bear. By the time dawn rose, the kitchen was gone. Emma sat in the dirt, hands blackened with soot, eyes burning not just from smoke but from loss, betrayal, fury at everything. At Luke, at the ranch, at herself for daring to hope. Before she left, he tried to speak. He even wrote it down, because sometimes the weight of regret can't be spoken. Just scratched on cheap paper with shaking hands. "I should have spoken that night in Billings. I should have stood up sooner. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I don't expect it. But I'll be here. However long it takes." Emma folded the note once, slipped it into her pocket, and walked away. The fire might have burned the kitchen, but what it couldn't burn was memory. Years passed, not in great leaps but in slow seasons, like dawn creeping over frostbitten fields. The world beyond Broken Ridge kept turning. Trails were forged. New towns rose from dirt and ambition. Somewhere in that wider world, Emma Rivers carved out a life that wasn't borrowed or begged, it was built. It started with an abandoned stage stop on the edge of the Canyonlands. Half the roof was missing. The windows were broken. No one wanted it, not even the wolves. But Emma saw something different. She gathered wood. She patched the roof. She cooked on a borrowed stove until she could afford a better one. And when travelers passed, they stopped, not because they knew her name, but because the smell of fresh bread could break down walls even shame couldn't hold up. She called it the Mesa of Dreams. And soon, children came. Children with faces smudged with dirt, stomachs empty but eyes curious. Emma taught them how to knead dough, how to chop onions, how to carve meaning from the simple act of making something from nothing. It wasn't a home yet, but it was close. Luke came too. Quiet as always. No speeches. No apologies anymore. Just work. He fixed broken beams. Cleared rocks from the paths. He didn't ask for a place at her table. He earned it, inch by inch, callus by callus. One spring, wildflowers bloomed across the mesa in blue and purple waves. Emma found him early that morning, crouched in the dirt, planting vegetables by hand. She stood for a long while before speaking. "I don't need you to fix me," she finally said, her voice softer than dawn. "But I wouldn't mind you staying, if you're willing to build something together." There were no fireworks. No dramatic kisses like in storybooks. Just two people, scarred, stubborn, choosing each other because they knew the cost of silence, and the price of honesty. The Mesa of Dreams became more than an inn. It was a school. A refuge. A sanctuary for anyone who knew what it meant to carry shame like a stone inside their ribs. They married in the orchard one fall. The ceremony was nothing more than two friends standing in front of those wild blue flowers, promising not perfection, but effort. And Emma Rivers, once reduced to whispers and cruel laughter, now laughed freely. The world didn't erase her past. She did something better. She wrote a future over it. In the heart of the wild, among ash and betrayal, Emma didn't just survive, she built. Not just a kitchen. Not just a home. A legacy. A place where broken people learned how to stand again, where scars were stories, not shackles. And in that quiet, with laughter carried on the wind, Emma Rivers taught the world something powerful. The past doesn't define you. What you build next does. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to be reminded that no matter where you come from, your future is still yours to build. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and be part of this journey with us. We don't just tell stories. We tell the ones that change you.